Thank you for coming.
No problem.
Can you tell us just who you are and what you were diagnosed with?
Yeah, I'm Cara. I'm 33 years old, and I was diagnosed with bowel cancer just over a year and a half ago now. So at my initial diagnosis, I was stage 3. I had a tumour that was located on the right side of my colon, and at that stage, I had no spread. But since then, I've progressed on stage 4, and I now am facing liver surgery for multiple lesions on both lobes.
Okay. So how were you diagnosed? How did you find out that something was wrong?
I had quite a long road to my final diagnosis. So about a year before I was diagnosed, I went to my GP because I'd started suffering some changes in my bowel habits. I was slightly more constipated. I mean, previous to that, I would say I'd been quite regular. Mm-hmm. And I was aware my dad had had bowel cancer in his 40s. Yeah. So I was just conscious that something wasn't quite right, and I thought it was the best thing to go and get it checked out with my GP. So I went to my GP, and she was very happy that I'd come to see her. They did some blood tests initially, which showed that I was anemic, and quite, not severely anemic, but running quite low. So because I'm premenopausal and female, the normal route is to look into anything ovarian problems or menstrual problems. So I had quite a long period of time where I was being referred for scans that took 12 to 16 weeks to come through just to investigate that side. And at the same time, she just kept monitoring my blood levels. So that kind of went on from the February till about October time. And in the October, I went back, she put me on another course of iron. They didn't know why I was anemic, but they hadn't really addressed what was going on with my bowel. I think one of the reasons for that was that I didn't have any of the major red flag symptoms that people might often associate with bowel cancer. So whilst I had the occasional stomach cramps and my bowel habits had started to change, I didn't have any visible bleeding. Or anything like that. So I think that took quite a long time. So in October, she did another blood test and my bloods had started to drop even more. And the next one she did, they dropped quite rapidly to below a point where it's healthy to be walking around the street. So they were contemplating giving me blood transfusions then. And that's when they did a stool sample and referred me for a colonoscopy when they found that there was actually bleeding within my bowel somewhere, but it wasn't visible to the naked eye in your stool. So I had a colonoscopy, and that was the point where they found the tumour.
Okay. And so did they know right away that it was bowel cancer then?
I have a feeling the person who did my colonoscopy knew. It wasn't said to me in so many words, but she did explain that they had found a growth within my colon and that it would have to be removed surgically. And at the same time, she referred me straight away for CT scan of my pelvis and my chest cavity. So at that stage, and given that things were seeming to go the same way that had happened with my father when he was diagnosed, I'd kind of had an inkling that this could possibly be bowel cancer that I was facing. So it's almost like a slow, I don't want to say a build-up to it, but piecing everything together. By the time I walked through my consultant's door and actually got my formal diagnosis, I was already there. I'd kind of made this, you hope it isn't going to be that, but you've kind of adjusted and prepared yourself that is what you're going to hear them say to you.
And how did you feel then when they sort of gave you the news that had been building, I guess, for a while?
I was still shocked. I mean, it's not something you ever really expect to hear, especially at a young age.
Sure.
You might have a few suspicions but I was apprehensive. I was kind of scared about what was going to happen, but I think I quite quickly flipped into a mode where I wasn't I wasn't not dealing with my emotions straight away, but I kind of just wanted to know what I needed to do to make the next steps to try and get on that path to getting rid of it or being better. I was on my own when I was told, which, I don't know, some people have said to me afterwards, I was like, was that the right thing to do? But for me, I tend to need to be able to process my own emotions and have something straight in my head before I can then deal with someone else being there and their reaction to it. And I know not everybody is like that.
So how did people, sort of your friends or family, react when you did tell them the news then?
Well, I had to start with my mum. It hadn't been a good year. My mum had lost her father in previous February, and then my dad had died in May. So my diagnosis came 6 months after my father died, so she was still grieving. So after having been to see my consultant, I almost had to pluck up courage to tell her, because I was worried, because I knew she would be upset, and she was upset. But again, she took her time to process that. She's been very supportive through my whole treatment, everything that's been done. She's always been there for me, which is great. And I really feel like I've got the emotional support that I need from her. And with everyone, I think they were just shocked. People were upset. I mean, I think some people seemed more upset than I did. I often think when you're the person that's been diagnosed, you kind of have a bit of control over a situation. You're the one that's going to appointments. You've got you're active in it. Whereas I think a lot of my friends were at a loss of what to do and how to help me and what they could do. But I mean, they've all been absolutely brilliant. I couldn't ask for better people in my life, really.
And what about for you? So sort of, because I mean that's quite a lot of cancer to have to deal with, as well as your own. I mean, how have you kind of coped? How did you at that time cope with your own emotions?
I allowed myself to be upset at it. I tried to be very open and talk to people. It's definitely, I've never been a closed person, but I would say this experience has definitely made me talk about things more, because I find that kind of quite a cathartic process, and just getting your worries out there and knowing that the people around you are then able to kind of support you in different ways. Or even, I mean through Shine and different things, I've been in touch with other people going through the same things, and the more open you are with it, people then talk about their experiences, and you realise that you're not alone in facing either the whole thing, like with being diagnosed with cancer. There are hundreds of people out there facing the same thing day in, day out, down to the small things of how the treatment feels, or maybe how you feel one day emotionally. There's always somebody out there who's going through the same thing, and being able to kind of bounce those emotions off people is really helpful for me anyway.